So, of course, you know we're in Atlanta, Georgia this week, and we stopped by Righteous Guitars, and look what they have. I didn't even know. They've only had it for a short time, and I talked to Ben, and he said, you know what, go ahead and shoot a little vlog about this thing, and we're going to talk about what a Plek machine actually does. That's what this is. What it actually does, and kind of what the differences are between doing that and a normal fret, level, and crown. This is Scott, and he is going to walk us through some of the things. I've never actually spent any real time with one of these, so I'm really excited about it. It was just kind of a surprise thing that came up. So let's get on it. All right, Scott, so tell us what we're looking at here. Obviously, we know this is a Plek machine, but what is the basic general premise of it? What does it do?
So essentially, the Plek is just a specialized CNC machine. So it's able to scan everything having to do with the board, the frets, even the nut down to 1/1000th of a millimeter.
Wow.
So it's a little more accurate than a human can be.
Absolutely.
It takes the guitar, it scans it with the strings on, so at tension. It's actually at tension, whereas if you were to do a normal level and crown, like you said, with no strings on it, you don't know how that neck is going to react when you put tension back on it. So if you level it out with no strings and all of a sudden you put strings on, there might be a twist in the neck that all of a sudden shows up, and then your level and crown is,
wow,
it's not what you thought it was going to be.
So this Gibson Acoustic that you have on here now, have you already scanned it?
Yes.
So can you show us what the scans look like? So as far as like the irregularities maybe that you have already found, because you've not done this guitar.
Correct.
You've only scanned it.
Correct.
Okay, so we're at the perfect time for this.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that over there on the computer you're gonna be able to show us some kind of like bumps and jaggedy stuff.
So this is essentially the graph that appears once we've put the guitar in, scanned it at tension. So as you can see, essentially a simplified view is this is going to be the nut, this is the saddle. Each fret you can see is essentially a bump on the fretboard.
Okay.
And from there we can see where the highs and low for each fret on each string is.
Because it won't wear evenly all across the strings. Each string will wear differently.
Right. So for example, on the high E, you can see on the second fret it's a little low. And then it gets into a little further down the board. There's kind of a dip in there, and then it comes back up near the 12th fret, and then it just falls off.
Yep.
But it's not going to be the same for each string. You can see that the low E is pretty close, and it actually has a raise in the 3rd and 4th fret.
Interesting. All right, so once this thing is scanned and you've taken those measurements, then what are the mechanics that's going to happen? Obviously, this is going to close. It's going to put the guitar against something over here that's going to actually mill it.
Yes, so once we take the strings off, as you can see here, we put these metal, I guess they hold the guitar in place, so there's not going to be any movement while it's cutting. Then the sensor finger runs up and down the board one more time to see the changes from when there was tension and now that there's no tension. And then it actually begins the cutting with the cutting head. It just runs up and down the board multiple times. So if it does 4 cuts, it'll do its first cut all the way down, second cut all the way down, third cut all the way down until it's finished.
Wow. Well, can we see it go?
For sure.
So it like retakes the reference points.
So essentially rescans the entire neck now that there's no tension, because obviously if there's any twist or anything that the strings caused, it's no longer going to be there, and also tying it down with those metal straps is going to pull the neck back.
Okay, so what you're saying is when you scan it, it's under tension.
Correct.
When you actually mill it, it's not under tension, and it's reading right now the difference between the two to compensate for that.
So essentially I've already told it, with tension on the strings, we need to take
X amount off of the fret.
50,000th of a millimeter off the second fret. Well, now it's kind of remapping the entire thing. It still has all those numbers, but now it's got to remap to see where the neck is, and it'll cut based off of that new
Gotcha.
kind of
Yeah,
like new
the
position.
difference between under tension and not tension, so that
Correct.
it accurately comes out with a net sum of the correct
Exactly.
cuts. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. So now it will do this multiple times.
Correct. So right now, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, it shows, so we're on cut 1 of 3 for fret number 4. So it'll go down the entire board and do the first cut on each fret, and then it'll go back up to the top and then do the second cut on each fret until it's finished every cut that it needs to do.
Because it's not going to cut every fret the same way,
Right.
and it's not even going to cut every fret in the same place.
Right, so it might cut, I think it cut the second fret once, but it's cutting these frets 3 times.
Gotcha.
So just depending on how much material it needs to take off and all that, that's how many times it cuts it.
So, I mean, the other thing too is a side benefit of this is going to be, since it's not a human, you bring a vintage guitar in that you want to retain as much fret as possible. You know, theoretically, you're going to get more life out of that fret. If me or you actually just go in there and re-level and crown that, probably we're going to take more material off
Almost guaranteed we'll take more material off
than the
this
machine will.
Exactly.
So it's easier on the guitar in
Yes.
the long run to do it this way also.
Because this is, for this particular guitar, we're taking a lot of material off. Well, in the Plek world, that's 125 thousandths of a millimeter. Is
What?
a lot. Exactly.
That's insanity. This gives you the ultimate bass line.
Yes.
The ultimate bass line.
Well, now that he's stringing this back up and tuning it up, again, it'll measure itself, and it's going to look to make sure that it did exactly what it said. So since it took a scan with tension on all strings, and then took another scan as he took all the strings off, it looks at the difference between those and it knows how much to process in order for it to be perfect when it goes back to tension. So, and it'll just take a minute to scan, but once it does, we'll be able to see that it is indeed perfect. And we can also adjust any nut issues at that point.
Oh, okay.
So it also will do nut work. So
Oh, really?
We can take that down to just perfect nut. Which, come on, that's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody likes cutting nuts.
Nope.
Somebody might, but it's not the most fun thing. And even when you use feeler gauges and things like that, it's not as consistent as this is as far as the slot height.
Right.
Yeah. The options you can do with it are impressive, and it can go. I mean, you can do almost, like I said, you could make a compound radius on a guitar without planing the fretboard, just doing it in the frets.
That's crazy. I
Doing
never
that by
even
hand
thought
is
of
not really an option.
No,
It'd be really difficult to do.
Yep.
Or if we cut a nut, we can measure, since we're measuring everything with calipers, we can look at the splay. Like on a Gibson, the fret slots, if you really want to go in a straight line with the tuner, they're going to curve, they're going to be angled.
Right.
So you can take that into account. And it's actually pretty cool to have it cut a nut slot perfectly in line with where the string goes.
Gotcha. So, yeah, if it's leaving the nut to go to the tuning peg this way, you can actually cut that
Correct.
perfectly.
So it has a good, strong contact at the exit, but the rest of it's going to have less opportunity to bind.
Which is a huge tuning stability deal. Yeah.
Well, most tuning problems are in the nut. Like almost all tuning problems are in the nut.
Absolutely.
So-
No, absolutely. So I hand you my guitar and I walk away. How long does it take?
The quick version is you put it in full tension in tune. It'll scan. It'll
Okay.
look for any issues. If you need to make an adjustment to the truss rod or something, you can do that. It'll scan again. Once you get it as close to perfect as you can get it, it'll scan once more. Then you're going to make any adjustments you're going to make to the frets, right? And the nut. If there's nut issues, you'll take care of that all at the same time. Then you're going to put it back in here with the strings loosened and pulled back where they're out of the way, how they were.
Yep.
It'll go through, process the frets, process the nut. It'll do all that. It'll come back through, scan it again, make sure it did what we asked it to do, which it always does. But then we're going to retune it, let it do what it just did, which is scan it and say, yeah, I did what I said I was going to do. right?
Yep.
At that point, the guitar will come out and it'll go back out to the floor. The frets will get polished out, buffed out, and tempered. Like we'll burnish them as well. Once it's completely done, we'll come back in for a final scan, and then we have a whole history of that guitar. So let's say 3 years from now, you come back and you go, I just wish it played like it did when I brought it in to do that one time. We have everything from the action to everything. Every measurement on that guitar
Is now
stored.
documented.
Right, and every time you bring it back, it's just adding to that guitar. So we have the whole history of it from its inception, you know. And every guitar purchased at Righteous Guitars, we do this to. So when you leave with a guitar, it's perfect, right? If you get down the road a little bit and have some issues, we can look back at that and try to counter
Yep.
that and figure out what's going on. We can always get back to where you were. Now, if it needs a refret, cool. We can make it feel like it did then.
Right.
Because we can go back to that spec.
Yep.
And it's measuring such a fine detail that we really can get there.
That is
It's fun.
insanity. Well, thank you guys. This is Ben and Scott
Hi.
at Righteous Guitars in, I say Atlanta, but we're actually in what? Roswell,
We're
Georgia,
basically in
Atlanta.
We're in North Atlanta.
So that's it, man.